50 things about Doey the Doughman that you didn't know. Number 1. While we were playing, we found a tape that Doey recorded. It starts with him saying that he wasn't sure if it was really recording, but that he needs to vent and can't talk about it with anyone else. Mentioning that in the last few months he has seen terrible things. Fights, deaths, and much more. And that he feels he has seen things he never should have seen. And the worst part is that after witnessing all of that, it's been hard for him to keep his mind calm. And he feels a lot of frustration and anxiety. But the worst thing is that everyone looks to him for guidance on what they should do. Though he felt more comfortable when Poppy was around because she knew how to tell him what to do, but now she's gone. And that makes him feel very sad. He's afraid of the future and considers escaping and leaving all the problems in this place behind, since his body would easily allow him to leave. But his heart couldn't bear to abandon all the stuffed toys that want to escape and are left there. Besides, he knows those stuffed toys were once human, and feel hunger, fear, and many human emotions that make them weak, just like him. So, since the toys mean so much to him, he decided to come back and stay with them. And he recorded himself so that if one day he wants to leave again, he can remember why he's going to stay. Number 2. We all know that Poppy never thought Ollie was the prototype, and he never realized it either. The strange thing is that she never mentioned to him that she wanted to see him, and not seeing him is enough to raise suspicions about him. But that's not all. Doey also fell into that trap. He considered Ollie a friend and an ally, which allowed the prototype to manipulate him, persuading him to destroy the safe haven, falling into the hands of Ollie, or rather, the prototype. Number 3. We all know what happened during the Hour of Joy. We've even seen a tape that showed us the events of that day. But what we all want to know is, what was Doey's role in that event? There are theories that say he used his angry form, yes, that horrible form, to destroy the security of the protected cells and set the toys free, although it's also said that he might not have attacked anyone. Number 4. If you go to Isaac's Twitter, who was the former director of Poppy Playtime, you'll find a very curious tweet where he says that the idea of Doey has existed since Chapter 2, and they were thinking of making him the main antagonist because he's such an awesome character. However, in the end, they couldn't agree on it since they wanted an amazing story to introduce him. When they started working on Chapter 4, they thought it was the perfect time to bring him to the screen. Number 5. It seems that the name Doey is a combination of his personal trait, that is, his body made of dough, and from there comes the do, and a normal name that is believed to be I, thus forming Doey. However, according to research, no orphan was named that way. Still, this makes some sense since the original toy was created before Experiment 1322. Number 6. According to the data found on Experiment 1322, Doey weighs 408 kilos. And in case you didn't know, each plasticine container in which the Doeys came in plasticine form weighs around 84 grams. This means that to accumulate the amount of weight Doey has, at least 5,000 containers would be needed, making Doey the heaviest experiment of all. Number 7. In case you didn't know, Doey shares traits with some famous DC Comics villains. The first is Two-Face, better known as Harvey Dent, who has 2 personalities and needs a 2-sided coin to make decisions. The next is Clayface, a villain from the Batman world who, as everyone knows, is made of clay. And not only that, but he can also take on any form he desires. Number 8. Years after the Hour of Joy, things for Doey were not easy. At that time, he was the leader of Safe Haven after Poppy disappeared. Those days are recorded on a tape from 2001. On that tape, we can hear a toy screaming in pain, Hoppy trying to help him, other toys, the doctor, and Doey. The toy had broken when it was attacked in the elevator while bringing supplies to Safe Haven. Poppy and the other toys want to go back to retrieve the supplies they left behind after the attack. Doey says he will take care of going to the Playcare to look for supplies afterward, and that's why it's known that he faced catnap several times from that moment on while searching for supplies. Number 9. According to the reports I have gathered from the internet, everything indicates that Doey's putties only included the putties themselves, and not the putty toy as such, since although the name Doey existed, the toy had not been created. However, as the putty brand evolved, at some point they created Doey the Doughman. Even so, since the plasticine doll was a bit more expensive to produce, the advertisement announced that Doey the Doughman was sold separately and also promoted that Doey was the new mascot of Playtime Co. The audio also mentions that Playtime Co. was the home of Huggy Wuggy and the new doll Doey the Doughman. And by calling Doey new, we realize that he was created much later than Huggy Wuggy. Number 10. One fact that caused a lot of amusement among the players is the durability of Doey's hat, as it seems to be more resistant than steel bars. What the heck is that hat made of? Whatever it is that Hat has, it can't be deformed like Doey, but it's ridiculously tough. Number 11. According to data miners, Doey's trauma from the explosion of the safe haven was supposed to be much more intense, as these data miners found an audio file where Doey's screams are more desperate and louder, conveying a greater frustration than what we saw in the game scene. And the best part is that these data miners leaked the audio. Number 12. There is a very interesting theory that states that the 3 colors of Doey represent the 3 children who make him up. Red would represent Kevin, recognized for being aggressive but with great physical ability to protect others. Orange would represent Matthew, the oldest and most charismatic, and yellow would represent Jack, the youngest, most innocent, and very curious of the 3. Jack was also the one who loved Doey the most, and Doey's main personality is based on him, although depending on the situation, the other personalities emerge. Number 13. Doey's intentions were truly good, despite the mental problems he had due to the 3 children inside him. This has led some to recreate an alternate reality in which they were able to destroy the prototype, and where Safe Haven was never destroyed, and everything ends in a beautiful party where everyone is free. Number 14. The sadness that Doey felt upon seeing that the safe haven had been destroyed and that everyone he had tried to protect was dead was immense. Therefore, some people have tried to illustrate everything he felt when he found the bodies of the dead toys, suggesting that Doey has a noble soul. Number 15. On February 12, 2025, Mob Entertainment shared an image of Doey, making it clear that Doey is broken in every way, physically, spiritually, and mentally. But the important thing is that he still has his hat, leaving an interesting message. The hat stays on, even if everything else falls apart. Friend, if you like my video, remember to subscribe. I'll try to upload videos every 2 days about the most interesting games and characters. Number 16. Doey has many personal clashes with our dear Poppy, although it is known that she did many things during the Hour of Joy, things that have never been clarified to us. If that evil side of Poppy exists, Doey has a lot of mixed feelings about her because she later disappeared, and he had to take charge of Safe Haven alone. So, after those events, both Doey and the other toys label her a traitor, and after her return, they don't treat her the same. When she comes back, Doey doesn't quite know how to act, especially since she wants to destroy the entire factory while Doey only wants to save his friends. However, out of Doey's 3 personalities, Matthew always stands out as the one who takes control of the situation. Number 17. A Twitter user named Max Voidcore was the one who designed the blueprint for the character Doey Complete. But the most interesting thing is some sharp red teeth that he added, and it seems that Doey hides them under his putty-made body. But without a doubt, he has them. Number 18. As you already know, Doey can take any shape he wants with his body, and not only that, but he can also harden himself as if he were made of steel, making him a formidable opponent for many enemies. Even so, he doesn't seem to take much advantage of this ability, only using it when he helps the player cross chasms. All of this leads us to understand that Doey really doesn't have much imagination or intelligence. He's just an emotional being who wants to be loved and live peacefully. Number 19. Thanks to data miners, many valuable things have been discovered about Doey. One of them is dialogue from an extra mission that Doey had for the player, which, for some reason, was not added to the game. In it, he asked the player, in this side mission, to recover an old book that is very important to him and the other toys in Safe Haven. The book is called The Adventures of the Wizarding World. Data miners also found the dialogue Doey has after the book is recovered, where he says it's a story that was often read at the orphanage. The point is that Doey wants all the toys in Safe Haven to feel like they did back at the orphanage, with lots of children being pampered and reading stories. Number 20. The final form of Doey is a genetic aberration, since of the few times Doey uses transformation, this is it, and its form is based on various living beings. It's a mix of a plesiosaur, an iguana, and a slug. And to make it even more macabre, you can see the 3 corpses, or perhaps zombie bodies, of the 3 children it has inside. It's one of the most gruesome things I've seen in Poppy Playtime. Number 21. One of the tapes from Chapter 4 shows us that the parents of one of the 3 children who make up Doey went to visit him. In this case, it specifically refers to Jack. Jack was the smallest of the 3 children, and the most tender. Unfortunately for them, the one controlling Doey's body at that moment was Matthew. So, he thought they were liars, and to make matters worse, Jack's father rejected Doey, saying that it wasn't his son. The point is that in the end, Doey, controlled by Matthew, got angry and ended the lives of Jack's two parents at that moment. Number 22. When Doey was about to fight us, his personalities began to struggle within him, trying to bring him to his senses, which shows he has very strong mental conflicts. The most interesting thing is that many players consider this change before the final battle as a reference to Gollum from The Lord of the Rings, since Gollum switched between two personalities. Number 23. The concept designer of Doey, known on Twitter as Amber Loves Bugs, created one of the first concepts of Doey the Doughman. They thought it would be cool if the player could run with Kissy after betraying Doey, and then you'd unexpectedly encounter him when he finds you. Honestly, it's a pretty monstrous version of Doey, and there's no doubt we know he could turn into that, since he can transform into anything. Number 24. On the official Twitter account of Mob Entertainment, they posted behind-the-scenes photos from the filming of the opening sequence of Chapter 4. In them, we can see images of the clay Doey from the trailer. The interesting thing is that below this post from the official account, they posted this, which is pretty crazy because many say it means that Doey might return for Chapter 5. Let me know in the comment box what you think about this theory. Will Doey appear in Chapter 5, yes or no? Number 25. One of Doey's animators and designers showed on Twitter what one of Doey's animations would look like when he goes crazy. This animation is quite interesting because when he loses it, it's as if the three corpses of the children inside him were trying to escape from Doey's plasticine body. Number 26. If you've ever wondered while playing Chapter 4 what those huge piles of material that look like they came out of Doey's body are, scattered throughout the game, well, there's an explanation. When Doey eats another character, whether it's when he goes crazy in his attack form or when he eats normally, he transforms them into clay inside himself. But that means it keeps piling up inside him more and more. And if a victim is too big, he has to defecate the excess. Yes, my friend, that material you see in the game is actually Doey's poop. Number 27. Matthew was the last child used to complete Doey. Matthew is described as a very kind and good person, although he wasn't very strong academically due to many shortcomings. Even so, he had a charming way about him, as everyone at the Playcare loved him. Even the other children considered him a leader. However, this boy lived with a broken heart and many traumas because he couldn't save his family from death, as his parents died in an accident. Time passed and he turned 15, yet no one adopted him. This makes Matthew the oldest of the three boys in the experiment that makes up Doey. It is believed that Matthew's personality is the dominant one in Doey. Number 28. The final battle against Doey made us understand that experiencing so many negative things made him distrustful. Moreover, he is aware that he had to do some bad things to save Safe Haven, such as ending the lives of other toys that everyone knows were human, and all of that is included in the forgiveness he speaks of before dying. Number 29. The Twitter user named Amber Loves Bugs, who is one of the designers and animators of Doey, shared some of the private designs they had about Doey and the things it could do. In that image, we can see several interesting things that Doey can do, but this is the creepiest one, where many hands emerge from inside it. 6 hands in total, the 6 hands of the 3 dead children inside it. Or, well, they aren't dead, they're just the same being. Number 30. Doey refers to a doll named Frosty the Snowman. Frosty is a snowman who comes to life when a hat is placed on him, in addition to being a Christmas legend within his own series. Number 31. Doey is a product that began to be marketed in 1950, and although Experiment 1322 was not conducted at that time, there are indications of it in Chapter 3. In that chapter, there is a tape where a scientist is speaking into a recorder, meaning his voice is being recorded, when suddenly a child interrupts him, saying he is worried about Kevin, a boy who is being experimented on. The last thing the scientist says is that Kevin was not doing well before stopping the recording. And as you can imagine, at that moment they were experimenting with Kevin, one of the 3 children who would be used in Project 1322. Yes, this appears in Chapter 3. Number 32. Doey's plush toy was leaked long before its official debut. And since every boss in the franchise always gets a plush toy, many people began to speculate long before Chapter 4 was released that Doey was the final boss. Number 33. In case you didn't know, before Doey became this thing, he had an intermediate transformation called the Angry Transformation. I already showed what it was in another Curiosity, but here I'll show you the video. They didn't show this transformation because it's Doey's intermediate transformation, and at that moment, a rock fell on him, and he immediately transformed into the giant aberration. Number 34. One of the things that disappointed everyone was that the Pianosaurus only lasted 14 seconds on screen because Doey ends its life. Even so, the developers at Mob Entertainment did something quite curious. In a Christmas image, we can see Doey on a sleigh being pulled by a Pianosaurus, perhaps giving us a hint that these two experiments have some sort of connection. Even so, I think they should have made more use of the Pianosaurus in the game. Let me know your opinion about this in the comment box. Number 35. Doey's presentation is one of the sourest of all, as he appears ending the life of Pianosaurus, and yes, believe it or not, Pianosaurus has a fan base that was hoping he would be the Tyrannosaurus Rex and a big boss. Number 36. In case you didn't know, every boy used in the Doey project has a special numbering. Matthew is 1322C, Kevin is 1322B, and Jack is 1322A. Number 37. The difference between Doey and the other experiments is that it was supposedly an accident. As you already know, Jack fell into the huge barrels of plasticine. As you know, Jack received a toy Doey and a ticket to visit the factory, but when he went with another group of invited children, he fell into the barrels of plasticine, forming Doey. However, I don't believe in accidents because Doey is made up of two other boys who were intentionally used for the experiment. Number 38. Jack's incident was written up and duly reported. As in Chapter 4, we find a document that explains how it happened. And it also says some things like Jack's parents are bad parents, and that Jack is not very intelligent. Number 39. Doey has a peculiar way of walking. In fact, it's one of the most amusing ones. It's curious because many of us laughed when we saw him walk while we were playing. And this is due to the shape of his body. Although he could change his body into any form he wanted, taking on one that would make walking easier for him, it seems he doesn't care much about that and is happy with how he looks. Number 40. While investigating, I realized that Amber Lovebugs, one of Doey's cheerleaders, had a YouTube channel, and on it, she shared one of the animations she made of Doey. In this animation, Doey is shown singing a song to the player. It seems this was intended to be part of the game, and I really think it would have been a fun part of the game if they had included all of this, but for some reason they left it out. Number 41. Something few people know is that Doey is one of the oldest products of the entire factory, at least when it comes to the toy and not the experiment, since the toy came out in the 1950s. Number 42. Doey, despite being the final villain, isn't inherently evil. In fact, for more than half of the game, he was our ally. The problem lies in his mental struggles and the manipulation by the prototype, which means that despite everything, Doey is a character who is manipulable. Number 43. Many say that Doey is bipolar, but no. His situation is an even worse and deeper phenomenon called tripolar. He is made up of three people, three minds and three very different personalities, which makes Doey a rather complex being to understand and to some extent a failed experiment. Number 44. Three voices. Due to his tripolar nature, Doey sometimes speaks with three distinct tones of voice simultaneously, which confuses those who hear him. Number 45. Rare toy. Only 500 units of the Doey toy were produced in the 1950s, and today one of these original figures is worth thousands in the collector's market. Number 46. Doey was initially planned for Chapter 2, Fly in a Web as an antagonist, but his appearance was moved to Chapter 4 according to Isaac's comments, which shows a change in the game's narrative. Number 47. His design was created by Maxotron, who also designed Yarnaby, a technical detail little known among fans. Number 48. Max tweeted a very interesting image where Doey is seen asking for forgiveness, representing the final scene of the game. But not only that, we also see other creatures asking for forgiveness. However, unlike Doey, who does so with the player, the other creatures do it toward those they see as superior. Number 49. In the Doey commercial, there was a phone number that, when dialed, played a creepy message from Playtime Co. Although it's now deactivated, it's a little-known Easter egg. Number 50. His role during the Hour of Joy is unknown, leaving a mystery surrounding his participation in that traumatic event.